Hi there, my name's John, and today I'm going to be sharing with you something from the Bible that's really been practical and effective in my life over the recent weeks. I work for a large international software company. I work from home. I worked from home before lockdown, and I've worked from home during lockdown. And before lockdown, I found that the level of work and of pressure had gradually been increasing to a degree where I felt I was just on the edge of being able to cope with what was expected from me on a day-to-day basis. And then something happened when lockdown kicked in, and I won't go into the reasons for it now, but the level of work required and the stress and pressure associated with it took a significant step up. And so a good few weeks into level 5, I started finding that I just was really struggling to cope. It was tough. I was working long and late hours, and my stress levels all the time were incredibly high. And then while I was praying the one morning, I was really struggling and putting my best effort into to try and still connect with God on a regular basis. And one morning while I was praying, suddenly into my mind came a verse that I memorized a very long time ago. I can't remember how long, but I remembered a verse from Philippians chapter 4 that goes something like this. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, through prayer and petition, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And as I pondered on that verse and I pondered on why it had suddenly jumped into my head, I realized that I needed to take a very specific act, and I'm going to call it an act of faith, to start each day with not only recalling and thinking of the things that I was anxious about, but writing them down and praying them through before I started my day. And I found that incredibly helpful because when I wrote things down, I had to articulate to God what I was stressed about, what I was asking Him for. And in doing that, it forced me to verbalize it and to write it down in a logical and a legible fashion. And as I did that, sometimes I realized that I didn't even know what I was stressed about. I had this nebulous feeling of anxiety, but as I put it down and as I started praying about it, I was able to capture it, understand what was stressing me out, and turn it around and place it at God's feet. Now, the interesting thing is, in going through that verse, Paul, the author of the book to the church at Philippi, the book of Philippians, was writing about our heart and our mind. So not only have I experienced that my emotional experience of anxiety and stress has been improved as I've trusted God with the things I've asked Him for, but also my mind, as I've processed it, as I've gone through the rational thought of what's stressing me out, what could happen, what could go wrong, what seems to be trending in the wrong direction. And I think there's an underlying principle here, and that is that we love to be in control. I don't know about you, but I love to be in control of my life. I like to know this is what I'm going to do, and when I do this well, the outcome will be good. The problem is that sometimes, despite my best efforts, the outcome doesn't end up as good as I would have hoped. And I realize that I'm not as much in control of my life as I would have liked to have thought. And that helps me get to that place of recognizing, actually, there's very little in my life that I truly control. But if I can change my mindset, and if I can bring my anxiety and I can bring my requests and I can put them in front of God, and I can say, God, these are the things that are bothering me, and I trust you with them. I know that you've got my best interests at heart. I know you've got the best interests of the people around me at heart. You can see all the other factors that are going on, even before they come to be. You know the best outcome, and I can trust him for it. Then all of a sudden, it's not about how good I am and how in control I am and how well I can manage all the different influences that can lead to different outcomes in my life. It's now up to him. And I can rest in the one that I trust to be able to do it so much better than I can. And that brings peace to my heart, and that brings peace to my mind. Now, it might sound quite good, but in reality, it's a daily return to the feet of God to ask him for strength and to bring fresh anxieties and repeated anxieties back to him. But I've really found over the last few weeks, as I've done this diligently day by day, starting my day with writing down just the top 3 things that are concerning me, presenting them to God, that I have experienced that peace that comes from him. So I wonder how it's going for you. Maybe you're in the medical field and the growing infection rate and death rate and all the related stresses of the pandemic are weighing you down. Maybe you're a teacher and this online teaching thing, all these controls around going back to school are bothering you and stressing you out. Maybe you're one of many who have no work or no income at this time. Maybe you're worried about your kids, or maybe you're struggling with relationships. Maybe you were okay before lockdown, but since the beginning of April, things have just gone pear-shaped. I want to encourage you to press into God at this time, to commit to a daily bringing of your anxieties and your stresses, to just put them at his feet. Pick your top 3, write them down, rewrite them until you've been able to articulate them as well as you can, and just say, God, this is what I'm stressed about. I put them at your feet. I give you control over these things, and I acknowledge that I don't have it. And I pray that you would help me with that. And the Bible promises us that the peace of God, which passes all understanding, we don't get it. We don't understand how this works. But his peace can guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus. Now, the verse goes on a little bit, or the passage goes on a little bit in Philippians chapter 4. And Paul, having laid that foundation, goes on and says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So we should be exposing our mind to all the good things that surround us, all the good things that come from God. It's so easy to allow our minds to be filled with others' anxieties, headlines, all sorts of stressful inputs. Let's choose to dwell and to feed our hearts and our minds with things that are good. And he carries on, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. This is a time also to look to brothers and sisters around us, other believers, other followers of Christ. Look at their good examples and do what we can to emulate them and to learn from them. And the God of peace will be with you. May he be with you today and this week. May he guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus.